The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Reproduction or dissemination, other than for the purpose of education or information without the express written permission of the Phoenix Research Institute or Nova Society Media, is strictly prohibited.
I'd like to welcome everyone back to the Nova Society. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound. Today, we will be answering listener emails. We have a question from Anna, who lives in Pisa, Italy. Anna asks, this past week, Pope Francis passed away. I know that Dr. Scott is Jewish. Dr. Brooklyn, I believe, is secular. Yes, that is correct. And Dr. Mark is Catholic. As this is a diverse religious group, I wanted to know if you thought Pope Francis had a positive impact on the church, and if the office of Pope has any influence in today's world.
I can see everybody looking at me first. I liked Francis. I liked him a lot. I think he did a fine job. He was far more progressive than Ratzinger, who was Benedict XVI, and the very popular John Paul II. He was a lot more, I guess, down to earth. I mean, here's a pope that wouldn't even stay in the papal apartments. He stayed very, very modest. He was very big about the poor. He was very big about the environment. He was very open to being kind to LGBTQ and accepting things, much to the chagrin of many of his cardinal brethren. I read an article probably a couple of days ago about this may be the last of the imperial papacy, where, the Pope is supposedly, according to the Catholic doctrine, is infallible. He cannot make a mistake. Sort of like people think of Trump, I guess. Anyway, I don't know. As whether or not, I think he was good for the church, so I can answer that. Will he have influence? Will the Pope have influence in the world? It all is going to depend on who is going to be the next Pope. The Pope does not have the power that the Pope had back in, the 12th century. No, it's never going to be that way. But they can have influence. And if they get the right person in there, somebody that is a diplomat. And we've had diplomatic popes before, some very good ones that could actually sit down with leaders and, really hold their own and talk with them. I think that there's a chance that it could bring back relevancy to the papacy as far as its impact on world. But to be perfectly honest, I don't hold up much hope. I have seen a list of about 10 cardinals that are possible to be the successor. Half of them are very, very conservative, especially the ones that are from Africa, because everybody knows that the African contingent of the Catholic Church is very conservative. It won't be an American. I can tell you that much. Will not be an American. Pope Francis was the first non-European since forever. We did have one that was originally we did have an African Pope many centuries ago. So I don't know. We might get somebody from Asia. But the world itself is becoming more secular. And the fact that, yes, there's 1.4 billion Catholics in the world. That's an important number. But many of the Catholics, and my friends will say, are quite a bit like me, what I call a cafeteria Catholic. If the rule was from the 15th century, maybe we ought to look at it before we actually follow it, because it isn't the 15th damn century anymore. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. The question really is can the next Pope keep the 1.4 billion Catholics engaged in the faith? And that might be the hardest. That may be the hardest thing that he's going to face going forward. And I guess that's it for that one. Go ahead, Brooke.
Yeah, I've got a question. Was the late Pope, was he a Jesuit? Is
Yes.
that correct? Okay.
He was.
I thought so.
He was also a bouncer in his younger years.
Okay. That I didn't know. Anna, thank you for your question. My late partner was very excited to see a Jesuit as Pope. Just delighted because of his experience with the courses taught by the brothers, practicing religion, the modesty and so on and so forth. Who might be next? I have no idea.
No clue.
Whether how much influence, I mean, I don't know. Unfortunately, here in the United States, with the present Trump regime, there's a lot of Christian nationalism, a lot of far right xenophobia. I don't know if the United States is moving away from being secular. I really don't know. I haven't studied that enough, but Speaker Mike Johnson is a Christian nationalist. I think he actually believes that people and dinosaurs live together simultaneously. Trump has no beliefs. He'll just say whatever he has to say to impress people, whatever audience he has. Vance.
Yes, but we learned something about Vance. We ought to send him to see Putin because Vance saw Pope Francis the day before he died.
Yes, he did. And I know that the Pope had something to say.
Yeah, that was kind of bad.
I know that the Pope had something to say to Vance, but I don't know what it was.
Probably please go away.
Is there anything that these guys can't screw up?
I mean, really. I mean, I saw the meme. What did we learn today? And Pope Francis, again, God love him. God rest his soul. But it is kind of funny that the Vice President of the United States met with him hours before he died.
Yeah. Well, I wish that.
And if you saw the picture, Francis really wasn't all that engaged in that conversation whatsoever. So.
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, look at the response from the was it a bishop over the Christmas service? It was a woman who spoke after Trump's inauguration, or before he was inaugurated, and she asked him to show mercy because he had said that God had saved him from being shot and all this kind of stuff. And she asked him, Trump, and his family or his administration, and Vance was sitting there as well with his wife, to show mercy to the marginalized in the United States. And of course, Trump was looking away and being, and then he later said that she should be deported. I don't remember this woman's name. I don't know if she's a bishop. I'm not sure what.
I think she's Episcopalian.
Episcopalian, thank you.
I believe.
So given Trump's response to a message like that, I don't know if either Trump or Vance would really pay attention to anything that anyone else says, regardless of how esteemed that person might be by others elsewhere, because certainly Trump, believes only he is right and only he knows what everybody else should do, and that would of course include telling God what to do, I would assume. So I don't know.
Do that. You get to do that when you're Orange Jesus. So
yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't know. I don't know how to answer the question. I'm sorry.
So for Anna from Pisa, Italy, thanks for listening to us. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the Pope. I generally don't focus too much on religious matters at all. But one thing I have done over the last few years is in one of my communication classes, I show the movie Spotlight. I have the students watch it, and it's a group dynamic class, and a group of reporters from the Boston Globe got together, and using different skills that each of them had, including the skills of empathy for some of them, just simple doggedness, another, an ability to work within the system for the leader of the group, who was very much a part of the fabric of the city of Boston, which is a very Catholic city here in the United States. And then another one who was really adept at using spreadsheets and getting organized when it came to data. They discovered that priests had been molesting children for quite some time. And Pope Francis was the first pope who acknowledged that this happened, apologized for it and made sure that their crimes were not swept under the rug, as had happened for so many years. And we don't know how many decades or centuries that this was going on. In the 12 years that followed that apology, that initial apology, he put together a consortium of Catholics, leaders, priests, cardinals, under what was in February 2019, a summit to address the crisis and establish what he called concrete measures to tackle it beyond just condemnation. And the meeting was called the Meeting on the Protection of Minors in the Church. 200 Catholic leaders took place in this meeting, and they tried to set about 21 points for attendees to look at and recommend, what to do about that. Abolishing the rule of what he called pontifical secrecy in the case of the abuse, and calling out the church for past abuses to try to address them as they went forward. So I'll give him high marks for trying. I'm not sure how much he was able to accomplish. I understand that the Catholic Church moves slowly, doesn't necessarily embrace change very quickly, but I'll give him credit for bringing it up, for apologizing for it, for convening that meeting, and for trying to protect children who were abused by priests and other clergy in the Catholic Church. Certainly a lot more than we'd seen before that. So kudos there. And more, I think, than what we find here in the United States in a lot of, evangelical quarters and various deacons and so on and so forth, people who have jobs where they have children working with them, or they're working with children and end up, we find out later, abusing those children. It is it was a step in the right direction. I'll end it there.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Pisa, Italy. That's
Pisa.
Fun.
I've been there.
Have you?
Yeah,
No,
I've been there.
I have to admit I haven't. I have not been there.
Besides that Leaning Tower, there's not much to do there. I think I had a good lunch, and then we moved on.
That's always important. Good lunch.
Good lunch.
Well, hopefully we answered that one as best we could.
Yes, thank you, Anna. We appreciate the question. We appreciate your listening, and do stay safe. And we'll see you again next time on the Nova Society.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or a comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Priscilla Hobbs, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of us here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, BH Conflict Resolution Services, a full-service dispute resolution firm offering expert and cost-effective mediation services to couples, groups, and businesses. BHCRS can be reached at www.bhcrs.com.